Good morning, dear students of class 11 and also the revising students of class 12. Today we are going to take up the short story Quality written by John Galsworthy. On your screen, you can see the photograph of the author John Galsworthy. Before we begin with the text of the story, let us now go through an introduction to this story taken from your textbook, followed by some more important information concerning the story, its setting, its theme, and other aspects which could be relevant for writing your answers. So I'm scrolling up. You may follow from your textbook because I'll now be showing you the pages from your textbook eventually, but first with the introduction. John Galsworthy was born on August 14, 1867 in Kingston Hill, Surrey, England, and died on 31st January 1933. So he was an English novelist, a playwright, winner of the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1932. He came from a newly rich upper middle class commercial family. Trained as a lawyer, he switched to writing as soon as his father died. His works mainly deal with the social class system prevalent at that time, concentrating especially on the upper middle class to which his own family belonged. Although he treated his characters sympathetically, he highlighted their narrow-minded snobbishness and suffocating moral values, projecting their acquisitive tendencies as morally wrong. At the same time, he also campaigned for a variety of causes such as women's rights and animal protection through his writings. All these issues, plus many more related to the hardships faced by people in changing times, are to be found in his short stories as well. John Galsworthy is best remembered for his trilogy, The Forsyte Saga, chronicling the life of three generations in an upper middle class extended family similar to his own. Now, what is a trilogy? It's a series of books or novels where the second novel begins from where the first novel ends, and the story continues, the characters are the same, and then the third novel begins from where the second novel ends. Now, in each of these three novels, which are part of a series, you have basically three generations being discussed, their life and all the incidents of their life. So these things come out in the main plot of these novels. So that's called a trilogy, and Forsyte Saga is one such trilogy. The Skin Game, published in 1920, and Loyalties, very famous. It's part of the ISC syllabus. Loyalties, 1922, are two of his best known plays. His play, Justice, led to prison reforms. When in 1917 he was offered a knighthood, he rejected it, saying writing was an author's greatest reward. However, he later accepted the Order of Merit and also the Nobel Prize. Now, let us discuss the story which we are now going to read. In the narrative story, it's a narrative story because there is a narration here by the author or the chief protagonist, Quality, which was published in 1912. Now, does the year 1912 ring a bell? Well, 1912 was the year the Titanic sank, the unsinkable ship. So remember, John Galsworthy was a contemporary of the Titanic, the people on board the Titanic. So it's the same year in which the Titanic sank that this story was published. Quality was published. Galsworthy poses the issue of the hardships that true artists have to face in a shallow, money-mad world that attaches little importance to the ideals of quality and excellence. So that was page 24 in your textbook, the introduction. And before we proceed with the text, which is from page 25 onwards, let us have a look at the other important aspects of this short story. About the author, once again on your screen you can see John Galsworthy. This is a much younger photograph of John Galsworthy, and his detailing is given here. Is one of the most famous English novelists and playwrights of the early 20th century. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1932. During his career, he produced 20 novels, 27 plays, 173 short stories, and other works. Other works, of course, including the Forsyte Saga, the trilogy. Now, the setting of this particular short story, let's see the setting. The setting is Industrial Revolution of the 20th century shifted the traditional workers. The traditional workers who did their work manually using their hands and their skills was replaced by machines. So machines of mass production came into being, and naturally what happened, people who did things with hands, with their hands, their bare hands, the artistic quality of the products made by such people lost out in the rat race of competition. So Mr. Gessler's shop competes with a big farm. Here there are some errors of English, so pardon me for that. So Mr. Gessler's shop, Mr. Gessler and his brother, they run a shoe store or a shoe shop. They are cobblers come shoemakers come sellers of shoes. But all these shoes are handmade from chosen pieces of leather, and they are so excellent in quality that they last and last. So they face tough competition with a big farm as Industrial Revolution with advertised products came into being. So this is the setting of the story. Now the theme of the story on your screen, the main theme is commitment. Commitment to one's work, to one's passion. Every worker is an artist if he loves his work and is immersed in it. So you see, that is the main theme of this story. The Gessler brothers, they are committed towards their work, and that's really very touching. For them, the struggles, the hardships, and nothing as long as they keep doing their work are nothing as long as they keep doing their work. So they are struggling. They are struggling in the realm of cutthroat competition. They don't advertise their products because they don't have anything ready-made. They run a shoe store where you have to go and you have to give your measurement, and then they custom make the shoes or the boots which you require according to the shape and size of your feet. So they struggle because in this world which is developing and which is becoming faster and faster day by day, people don't have time to wait. If they need a pair of shoes, they need it there and then. The money is in the pocket. They will go to the shoe store. They will try out different pairs, and the one they like the most, they'll buy. That's how things go now. But for the Gessler brothers, their customers had to wait. Had to wait for some time before the shoes were delivered. Sometimes a week, sometimes 10 days, 15 days, a fortnight, or even a month. The tragedy of Gessler brothers signifies a moral decay in the search for material civilization. So we live in this material world, in this materialistic world where everything is instant. Everything can be bought with the help of some amount of money. So people don't have time to wait. People are impatient. They are always, racing against time, and they don't have time to wait for things. So gone are the days of booking and then waiting for delivery. Gone are those days. Nowadays, even online shopping is delivered very promptly. So if you have a Prime membership, for example, they will deliver your goods really very fast, within a day or two, even if it is coming from the other corner of the country. So that's how things are happening in the present day world scenario. Anyway, this story dates back to 1912. So that was more than a century ago. Things were already becoming faster, quicker because of the Industrial Revolution. And because of that, these Gessler brothers, they had to eventually, they were completely defeated, they were completely washed away, and no trace of their shoe store remained at the end of the story. We shall see. It's very sad. It's actually very sad. But they are, in a way, you can say that they are, they lose out in this rat race of competition, but they don't compromise their quality. So that is what the title of the story is all about. So let's see the symbols used in the story. The basic symbols are the Gesslers, their boots, and the leather they use. They form a compound symbol of an uncompromising ideal. That's what I was talking about just now. Their boots, made of the best leather and incarnating the very spirit of all footgear, are their ideal, which stands for a supreme quality of human nature. The Gessler brothers stand for their type of human beings. So, in this world, you still find some people who will not compromise quality for the sake of quantity. But the world is moving more towards quantity and variety rather than quality. So today we don't think about having just 2 or 3 sets of good dresses, which will go on for a lifetime. The best amount of fabric, the best kind of fabric, the best kind of tailoring. Today is the day for changing your clothes morning, evening, afternoon. You need so many different dresses and so many different fashionable things. And things become very out of date within a very short time. Think about your cell phones. Think about the pen that you use, for example. Things have become use and throw. Things have become, less in quality and more in variety, more in quantity. So the trend had started with the Industrial Revolution. So 1912, when this story was published, things were already happening that way. So let's see. Quality, here we have the portrait of one of the 2 Gessler brothers. You can see that he's feeling a piece of footgear, maybe a shoe in his hand, or he's trying to, he's trying to feel the essence of the thing that he's making with his own hands. So he's one of the 2 Gessler brothers. This is an artist's impression or illustration. It's only a piece of fiction, but such people are not difficult to find, or were not difficult to find in those times. So John Galsworthy's Quality. Coming up on your screen now, the text of the story taken from your textbook. So you can follow from your textbook as well as from what you see on the screen. So I'm reading, and as I read along, I'll be trying to explain here and there, now and then. So please follow. Chapter 3, Quality, John Galsworthy. I knew him from the days of my extreme youth, because he made my father's boots. Knew whom? Mr. Gessler. Obviously one of the 2 Gessler brothers. Inhabiting with his elder brother 2 little shops let into one. What does it mean? There were 2 little shops side by side, connected in between 2 little shops. In a small by street. This shop was located in a small street. Or rather, it's not even a street, it's a part of a street or a portion of the street which goes inside to become a smaller street. Now, no more, but then most fashionably placed in the West End. So, the street does not exist anymore, but in those times, when he used to go there with his father to buy new pair of shoes for himself or get new pair of shoes made for himself, at that time, of course, it was a fashionable place. That tenement had a certain quiet distinction. There was no sign upon its face that he made for any of the royal family. Now, normally what happens is that if you have a shoe store, they will put up a big neon sign outside and they will advertise their product. They'll say, we also make shoes for the royal family. Whether they make it or not, this was one way of drawing the attention of the customers so that people would think, or the potential customers would have this belief that They were really going into a shoe store which specialized in making shoes for the royal family. Now, this one, Mr. Gessler's shoe store, did not have any such sign. Okay, merely his own German name of Gessler Brothers. So, what was written on the board outside? Just Gessler Brothers, nothing else. And in the window, a few pairs of boots. Now, in the display, there is this showcase or a kind of window, glass window, normally as you have outside all shops, where some boots were kept. I remember that it always troubled me to account for those unwearing boots in the window, for he made only what was ordered. Then how come these boots? He always made boots when they were ordered. He never had anything ready-made. Then how come there were some boots kept in the shop window? This was something which intrigued or which, puzzled or confused or vexed the narrator. Reaching nothing down, and it seemed so inconceivable that what he made could ever have failed to fit. And Mr. Gessler's boots or shoes were so excellent that once they were ordered and made by him, ordered by the customer, made by him, they were definitely suitable for the feet of his customers. So it could not possibly be that a customer had ordered a pair of boots and then those boots did not fit him. And so Mr. Gessler kept those boots in the window. It's not possible because he always made perfect pairs of boots. He had bought them to put there. Was it possible that he had bought a few pairs of boots just for display purpose? That too seemed inconceivable. Even that was not possible to believe. That was not really conceivable. Why? Because he would never have tolerated in his house leather on which he had not worked himself. He was so particular about what he made that he always wanted to be original. He never believed in buying things from the market and displaying in his shop window. Because leather, now remember, this was a time when boots were only made of leather, not made of any other material like nowadays. Now you have PVC, plastic, foam, all sorts of materials, cloth. But in those times, shoes and boots were only made of leather. Now, Mr. Gessler would not buy a pair of boots or shoes made by somebody else and then bring into his own shop. Not possible. So, even this was something difficult to believe. Besides, they were too beautiful. The pair of pumps. What are these? Pump shoes. You just don't have laces. You just put your feet inside them, slip them in and then walk. So, beautiful pair of pumps. So inexpressibly slim. They were so slim to look at. They had slim looks. The patent leathers with cloth tops making water come into one's mouth. They looked so attractive. Just like, if you saw a delicious food item kept before you and your mouth starts watering, almost similar is the feeling for a person who loves to wear shoes and boots. To see such beautiful pump shoes right before his eyes. So, the tall brown riding boots with marvelous sooty glow, as if, though new, they had been worn 100 years. And then apart from these pump shoes, there were tall riding boots kept next to them. They had this sooty or blackish glow on them. And they seemed to have been worn for 100 years. Yet they were so perfect in shape and so attractive to look at that one felt like buying them. Those pairs could only have been made by one who saw before him the soul of boot. Now, if boot has a soul, and if that soul can be seen with his own eyes by the cobbler who made it, only then can such a boot be made. That's what the narrator feels. So, truly, were they prototypes incarnating the very spirit of all footgear. They were the prototypes, they were the samples. Prototype is usually a sample which is made initially, and then things are made according to the prototype. So these boots seemed to be the prototypes of the wonderful boots made by the Gessler brothers. These thoughts, of course, came to me later, though even when I was promoted to him at the age of perhaps 14. So the narrator was only 14 years old when his father had probably taken him to the shop of Mr. Gessler for the first time to give the measurement of his feet for a new pair of shoes or boots. So that was the time he met him for the first time. Some inkling haunted me of the dignity of himself and his brother. There was an air of dignity around him and his brother. When he went there for the first time, he was just 14 years old, but when he met Mr. Gessler, he realized that he was no ordinary cobbler, he was no ordinary shoe store owner, or no ordinary shopkeeper. He had some kind of dignity of his own and something which one could feel when one met him. So that was something really exceptional. For to make boots, such boots as he made, seemed to me then and still seems to me mysterious and wonderful. So with that we come to the end of page 25, move on to page 26. I remember well my shy remark one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. "Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Gessler?" So he remembers, he tries to recollect what he had said once to Mr. Gessler when he was a new customer at Mr. Gessler's boot store. As he stretched out his feet, or his youthful foot rather, youthful because he was a young boy at that time. So as he stretched out his foot so that Mr. Gessler could take his measurement, he asked this question to Mr. Gessler: "Isn't it awfully hard to do?" And his answer, given with a sudden smile from out of the sardonic redness of his beard: "It is an art. It is an art." Why does he speak like this? Because Mr. Gessler and his elder brother, they are not British. They are not Irish. They are Germans. So they have an accent. When they speak English, they don't speak it like Englishmen do. So that's the reason why he speaks like this. But one can understand what he is trying to say. It is an art. It is an art. It's not awfully difficult to do. Cutting out the leather, giving it shape, stitching it, and making it into a boot is an art. Imagine making a pair of boots or shoes has been taken to the level of art by these two German brothers. It is an art. Himself, he was a little as if made from leather, with his yellow crinkly face and crinkly reddish hair and beard, and neat folds slanting down his cheeks to the corners of his mouth. So this is his physical appearance. This is the description of Mr. Gessler's physical appearance. He had a leathery skin and he had a red beard, and his face was yellow with maybe he had a few wrinkles on them. And his guttural and one-toned voice which came as if from deep inside his stomach, not just from his chest but from within his stomach. So guttural voice and one-toned voice. For leather is a sardonic substance. Because he deals with leather always, maybe because he sees the sole of the boot with his eyes when he stitches them, he has become so sardonic. So, leather is a sardonic substance, and stiff and slow of purpose. And that was the character of his face, save that his eyes, which were grey blue, had in them the simple gravity of one secretly possessed by the ideal. Ideal, written with capital I. What is this ideal? The idealistic concept of how to make shoes in the best possible way. Best leather, best stitching, so that it lasts forever. So that's how he made it. So he would not compromise on this ideal. His elder brother was very like him, though watery, paler in every way, with a great industry that sometimes in the early days I was not quite sure of him until the interview was over. Interview? Well, when you go to get a pair of shoes made by the Gessler brothers, it's like an interview. You go there, you sit there, he takes time to come downstairs, he takes time to measure your foot and feel your foot in different parts and corners. And finally, he will bring out the leather, the piece of leather with which he will make the boot for you. He will show it to you, and eventually your interaction with him will get over. So it's really different from what normally happens in other shoe stores. So it's completely different. So let's see. Then I knew that it was he if the words, "I will ask my brother," had not been spoken, and that if they had, it was his elder brother. Because the two brothers, they looked identical. Though they were not twins, but the younger Gessler was the one who actually did the interactions with the customers. And if he was not around for some reason, only then would the elder brother come into action and deal with the customers. So it was difficult for the narrator to make out who the elder brother was and who the younger. Therefore, he would wait for the man to say, "I will ask my brother." If he did that, then he was the younger brother. And if he did not say that, then he was the elder brother. So that is how he could make out. When one grew old and wild and ran up bills, one somehow never ran them up with Gessler brothers. It would not have seemed becoming to go in there and stretch out one's foot to that blue iron spectacled glance, owing him for more than, say, 2 pairs. Just the comfortable reassurance that one was still his client. So when you grow old, when you start earning, when you are able to pay your bills, when you are able to tackle your bills, things don't change. It's not that you start becoming more economical and that you go to the Gessler brothers and order for just 1 pair of shoes or boots. Because if you go there, you end up ordering at least 2 pairs. To give this kind of assurance to Mr. Gessler that you are still his client, not customer, mind it, client, not customer. For it was not possible to go to him very often. Reason? His boots lasted terribly. Once you purchased from him a pair of boots, you just kept on wearing them daily basis. And still, you would not be able to ruin them because they were of such good quality. Now that is something which should not happen if you are a business person. You must sell products which should have a certain limited period of life, after which, so that the customer comes back to you. If you sell things which are of such high quality, then there are very less chances of getting your customers back to you again. But Mr. Gessler, as I told you, would never compromise. It was not possible to go to him very often. So having something beyond the temporary, some as it were essence of boot stitched into them, the boots seemed to have so much of intrinsic quality. They were not just pieces of leather stitched on hard sole. They had some intrinsic quality in them. One went in, not as into most shops, in the mood of, please serve me and let me go, but restfully, as one enters a church. Visiting the shop of the Gessler brothers was like going to a place of worship. Take your time, go slowly and easily. Not just, not like any other shop where you go inside and you say, do you have so and so thing? Okay, serve me. I am ready to pay you, and then you just buy it and come out. No, it's not like that. You have to have time in your hand, and you must go there ceremoniously, just as you do when you are going to the church. And sitting on the single wooden chair, waited, for there was never anybody there. He would not be sitting in his shop and waiting for customers. He would be elsewhere inside, busy working on some of his orders, and the shop would be empty. So when you went to his shop, you just went inside. There was only one wooden chair inside it. Remember, it was a very small shop. And he just sat down there and waited. In time, he would definitely come down and he would definitely attend to you. Soon, over the top edge of that sort of well, rather dark and smelling soothingly of leather, which formed the shop, there would be seen his face, or that of his elder brother. So, with that, we come to the end of page 26. Peering down, a guttural sound and the tip tap of bast slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, and he would stand before one without coat, a little bent, in leather apron, with sleeves turned back, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots, or like an owl surprised in daylight and annoyed at this interruption. So this is how he would look when he would appear from his workshop into the shop. His sleeves would be, the shirt sleeves would be rolled back. He would not be wearing a coat. Instead, he would be seen in an apron, and well, he must have been working on some boots. So he must have got up from a dream of boots to attend his customer, or rather his client. And I would say, how do you do, Mr. Gessler? Could you make me a pair of Russia leather boots? Without a word, he would leave me. As soon as he would hear this, he would leave the shop again and go back to his working space, returning whence he came, or into the other portion of the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the incense of his trade. What is the incense of his trade? The smell of leather. Because inside his shop, you could get the smell of leather. Soon he would come back, holding in his thin veined hand a piece of gold brown leather. With eyes fixed on it, he would remark, "What a beautiful piece." So he would bring a piece of leather and he would appreciate the leather in front of the narrator. When I too had admired it, he would speak again. When do you want them? When do you want your shoes? And I would answer, oh, as soon as you conveniently can. Because that is the normal answer which you are supposed to give. Because he will take his time to make it. He won't hurry, he won't rush. Because things made in a hurry are not of a good quality. So it was just a habitual question, but then the answer should be what the narrator would say in response. And he would say, tomorrow fortnight, meaning to say, I will give it to you after a period of 2 weeks, fortnight. Tomorrow fortnight means I will be giving you your shoes after a couple of weeks. Or if he were his elder brother, I will ask my brother. Then his answer would be, I will ask my brother. So, you see, 2 weeks for making a pair of boots. That means approximately a week per boot. So he's going to make a pair. Then I would murmur, thank you, good morning, Mr. Gessler. Good morning, he would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand. And as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his bast slippers, restoring him up the stairs to his dream of boots. That means he was going back to his workspace where he would be once again busy with his work. But if it were some new kind of footgear that he had not yet made me, then indeed he would observe ceremony. Supposing he were to make a new pair of boots which were of a completely different style, then he would do it in a very ceremonious manner. Divesting me of my boot and holding it long in his hand, looking at it with eyes at once critical and loving, as if recalling the glow with which he had created it and rebuking the way in which one had disorganized this masterpiece. Meaning to say, supposing that he had made an exceptional pair of boots for the narrator, and the narrator was wearing them when he came into his shop to order a new pair of boots, he would look at the previous pair which the narrator was wearing in his feet, and he would have both admiration in his own eyes, he was admiring his own creation, and at the same time critical about how the narrator was misusing and not wearing them properly. So he would be both critical as well as full of admiration. Then, placing my foot on a piece of paper, he would 2 or 3 times tickle the outer edges with a pencil and pass his nervous fingers over my toes, feeling himself into the heart of my requirements. So you see, this was the way he felt the feet of his client, not only drew the outline of the foot, but would also feel where exactly and how exactly there should be a twist or the turn in the leather to give the boot the shape which suits the narrator's feet. So this is how he would do it. So with that, we come to the end of page 27. We'll stop here. I hope I have been able to explain this much for today, and I'll be making the second video in which I'll be finishing this short story. So today we end with part 1 of this video. Thank you very much.